fault. What I mean by that is for the last decades and even longer, there's been a lot of thought that's been pushed in at least the U.S. and maybe throughout Western civilization, this thought that, men, the regular guy, is useless, of no use. In best case, people have been pushing this idea that men are of little use. And it's really an ultra radical, maybe just a crazy feminist trend. So this video, I'm going to show you one of the political figures at a high level who has seemed to be infected by this thought, kind of slipped out in national TV and something she said. And then we'll show you a couple of video clips to show you that men are really valuable, in the home, in community, and society. So here we go. Check this out.
This is exactly why Margaret Thatcher said, if you want something said, ask a man. If you want something done, ask a woman.
Okay, so that was Nikki Haley, former governor of South Carolina, who is running in a Republican primary. She wants to be president. So when she blurted out that statement about, if you want something said, basically indicating that men are just talk, but if you want something done, you got to ask a woman. Now she's quoting somebody else, but that's really, a cheesy way or cowardly way. She's quoting somebody else, but if that's what she, quoting somebody else, if that's what is in her heart too, that's sad. And ladies, what I want you to do, and men, when you hear people make these kind of crazy public statements that seem to degrade the value of a man, I'll call it out and recognize what it is and stand against it. Because, yes, there are bad men, there are bad women too, but a man, the normal average guy, we've got to respect him and his role and his contribution, his critical role he plays in the home, in marriage, and family, and the community. All right, so let me play. Let's play the next clip that's going to show the proof of what I'm talking about, the criticality of men to homes and marriage and society.
I think most people would be surprised to learn that despite the fact that blacks as a whole have a higher poverty rate than whites as a whole, black married couple families have for more than a quarter of a century, every single year, had a poverty rate under 10%. And in most of those years, the national poverty rate was not as low as 10%. So it's not and you say, well, this is due to institutional racism. In that case, does that mean that the racists make an exception for blacks who are married? I mean, do racists either know or care whether blacks are married? None of these glib explanations stands up to the slightest empirical study.
So that was Thomas Sowell. Now, what I want you to take away from what he said was, we know in American history and maybe throughout different countries that, there's been racism against one group of people or another. And in United States history, there has been, in times past, even more severe racism against African Americans. Even today, racism still exists. But the point he's making is, if there is, a man married to a woman in that home, that I think Thomas Sowell he's a famous writer, researcher, thinker. I think he said in the black community, despite our adversities that our people have faced, here in America, if it's a man in that home, married to that woman, that it reduces for the married black families, homes, where there's the man there married to the wife, that the poverty rate is under 10%. And the point he makes is that that's lower than the national average amongst all people and races. The total national average is not that low as far as poverty rate. And let me say that again. When you look at black homes where the man is there, married to the wife, he's in that home, that group, that demographic has a lower poverty rate than the overall poverty rate of America as a whole. that's telling you, I mean, there's other advantages for, having, the husband and father in that home. But one we're pointing out right here from what he's saying is from a basic financial survival. You have you have 90-something% of those black homes where the husband and father, he's there, 90-something%, they are above the poverty rate.
We know the statistics that children who grow up without a father are 5 times more likely to live in poverty and commit crime. They're 9 times more likely to drop out of school, 20 times more likely to end up in prison. They're more likely to have behavioral problems or run away from home or become teen parents because the father wasn't in the home. The foundations of our community and our country are weaker because of this.
Okay, so I'm not, as far as his politics, ultra, or even, I'm not even a moderate President Barack Obama fan. But, if he tells the truth, then, I'm going to call it out here on what he was saying. When he gave you the stats, go back and listen to those stats of how much more at risk children are when that father is not there. When you have that husband and dad there in the home, you can fight with President Obama on the stats he's reading, the statistical information, that there is much lower incidence of all sorts of negative ills when you have that man there as the husband and father in that home. Yeah, you can point out individual instances where there was a bad father in the home, but if you look at the overall black community, or even beyond the black community, if you look at our society as a whole, when you have the father there, statistically speaking, rewatch what we shared as far as President Obama's clip from his 2008, I believe his 2008 Father's Day speech, that you are much better off, your children are much better off if you promote the role, the importance of there being a husband and father when you're establishing a home. Too often in our society here in the U.S., maybe I've seen it not just the U.S., but let's just put it this way. Throughout Western civilization, particularly here in the U.S., we have a problem where people disregard, try to devalue the role of the average man. And that you're going to reap the negative consequences that President Obama was speaking against. Now, he's speaking in a church at that particular time, and there are some churches who are real solid on promoting, the role of men as husbands and fathers. Then there are some churches, I will tell you, they will give lip service and read the verses, about the role of respect the man, the father, the husband, but what they're doing contradicts that. And let me elaborate on that, and we'll try to end this video. But you have some churches that what they do is they'll promote for the woman to put her husband on sort of a low priority, but give your all in all. They're teaching these women, or they're encouraging them or pushing them to give their all in all their time, day and night, to the church, to the local church. Not when I say church here, I'm not talking about the body of Christ that Jesus is asking them to sacrifice something. No, I'm talking about church work. And they're asking these women to do church work day and night, run themselves ragged, and disregard what your husband is saying, disregard his needs, disregard their children, to put the church, the local church, the church work first. That is a mistake. I don't want to use this term, but some of the old preachers, they'd say, you got some people who are, pimping the church folk. We don't, when you start pimping these women that you got some churches that they don't even want these single women to really marry a real man because they want to pimp her and use up all her time, everything, just abusively. So anytime you have even a church that they don't have the best interests of these married and these single women. I don't like to say, the church is pimping the married or single women, but let me put it this way. A church that really has your best interest at heart, they don't want to break up your marriage because they're just consuming you 24/7, working you to death. And neither do you want a church to consume 24/7 a single young lady to her detriment and run her ragged. Let me just end on this. Try to end on this real quickly. Years ago, I was dating a beautifully saved young lady, but she was so consumed. Her church had her such, beck and call that if the leader of that church called her in the middle of the night and said, I want you to do some little ridiculous errand, I believe she'd be willing to do it. I recall her even breaking, we had arranged to be together. We were in a committed relationship. And I was actually vetting her to marry her. I was seriously considered, but I think the church, she was just too over, for lack of a better word, worshiping the leader of that church. And I recall once we were supposed to, had sort of a date somewhat, and he wanted her to do some non-essential thing, and that really, he wasn't even asking his own, son to do, asking her to do stuff where she just, broke off what we had arranged to do. So, needless to say, that relationship did fail. And to this day, many years later, I don't know if she ever got married. All right, so hopefully I was able to adequately communicate what I'm trying to get across in this, that ladies, it's not totally your fault, but I want you to take charge. And these destructive thoughts, this destructive trend that, the average guy, he's of less value or whatever, I want you to fight against that in your mind, contend against it if possible. If it doesn't get you into a physical altercation, a fight with somebody, call people out on that. We've got to start fighting more strongly against that, because this thought is wreaking havoc in our community that, the average guy, he's not worth anything, or he's worth, not much. And ladies are great, but ladies, our society, our families, our communities will break down if we don't value the man. So fight against that ultra radical feminist thought. If you're at a church that's just taking your all in all, and I don't want to say they're pimping you, but you need to reconsider where you're at, because I've seen, what could be a good marriage breakup. I've seen, women in a situation where, maybe there's a certain respect you give the leader of the church, but there should not be worship. And the leader of your church, he's not your husband, okay? Your husband is your husband. And when you disregard your husband, or maybe your possible husband, and disregard them and they're, not worth a lot, but, they're just, you're going to end up with what I see. Not every case is this result of this. In many cases, women will lose a prospective good husband when you don't value the role of a man properly. It's not totally your fault. There are churches that are feeding into this trend of devaluing men. But I want you to take charge and take responsibility and move away from that thought. Because as I showed you, that's former governor of South Carolina, Nikki Haley, who wants to be president. That I don't know if it slipped out, or maybe she intended to say what she said, that, hey, if you just want, talk, something said, you just want talk, ask a man. And she's married to a man in the military. I believe he's overseas on a mission right now. Her mind needs to be readjusted, that she can easily say that. I'm trying to end this, but let me say one more thing. If you are anyways acquainted with the Nikki Haley campaign, or you know her, I tell you what, tell her I challenge her to work a day with me on my plot here up in North Carolina. I'll work that hot air out of her mouth, talking about you want something said, you want some just talk, but something done. Ask a woman to get, if you want something done, but if you want just talk, ask her. I challenge you, Nikki Haley. Get this to Nikki Haley. Get yourself up here in North Carolina, where I cleared wooded land that didn't have the mini lake I built, that didn't have a house, that didn't have infrastructure. And me, I got out here and driving heavy equipment and leading a crew of men, and it wasn't just talk. You come on up here, spend a day. I'll feed you, but you come up here with that smack you're talking. Work a day with me, and I'll work that smack talk out of you. I won't kill you, but you will be hurting when you finish working with me. All right, y'all get this to Nikki Haley. Tell her, come on up.